Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. Today I want to go back and take another look at the Baldwin Shark that I recently installed a LokSound decoder in. Today we're going to put a WOWSound decoder from TCS in the same locomotive, and then we're going to do a comparison. LokSound versus WOWSound. You decide, so stick around for the video. Okay, before we get started, I want to ask you to take a second to subscribe. Click on the subscribe box, and when that comes up, click on the little bell right next to it and click all. That way you'll be notified every time that I upload a new video. So I'm asking you to do this, help me grow the channel and keep providing you the kind of videos that you've come to expect from the DCC guy. Thanks a lot now. Okay, so here is the locomotive that I did the LokSound installation in. I was just going to pop in a WOWSound 21-pin decoder in its place and give that a test. However, in digging around, I found out that my 21 pins were not the prime version that have the Baldwin sound packages on them. So this is a standard WOWSound diesel version 4 that does have the Baldwin sounds. And again, it's version 4 prime, okay? So other than that, the decoders are basically the same. They just added more sounds to them. Now, as you can see, I pulled out the Decoder Buddy motherboard and then just wired in the wires from the TCS WOWSound decoder in its place. So it was a very straightforward installation. Also, you'll see right here, I have a KA3 Keep Alive, and that came with this particular decoder attached to it. I could have taken it off, but since it was there, I went ahead and decided to install it. I think I have it in the other Virginia and Ohio locomotives that I plan to run this with, which are also WOWSound decoder equipped. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this all back together, and then we'll put this up on the layout, and I'm going to run through the various sounds in the same sequence that I did previously for the LokSound decoder. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to intermix the LokSound version of the horn, and then the WOWSound version, then the bell, and then the bell on the WOWSound. We'll run them up a little bit and listen to the sounds they make. Hopefully we can get that the GE whooping compressor to pop off. It's called a whooping compressor for a very good reason. And I believe that these locomotives did have that on it. It's what was set up standard for this particular sound package. So I'm assuming that it was on this locomotive. I looked on a number of different resources online, and it wasn't clear exactly what kind of compressor it had. So, but I'm assuming that that is the correct one. At any rate, it sounds cool, and I want to let you hear that anyway. And so we'll run through all of those different sounds, and that'll be a wrap-up. Now, somebody asked me about the history on this particular type of prime mover, the 608. And around 1948, Baldwin decided they needed to upgrade their diesel prime movers. So what they did was they introduced a new series, the 600 series. So they were available in a 6-cylinder version, which was the 606, and an 8-cylinder version, the 608. And that's what was used in these locomotives. The 608 could come with or without turbocharging. So you had the 606 and the 608 NA. N as in Nancy, A as in Alpha, and that meant that it was not turbocharged, and the 606 or 608A, which were turbocharged. And on this particular model, they were turbocharged, so you want the 608A sound package for this particular diesel. The other thing about that turbocharged diesel prime mover gave these a rating of 1,600 horsepower, which was comparable, in the range of what the competition had. Another interesting thing about the Baldwin locomotives is all of their controls were pneumatic. They were, run by air, whereas the Alco and the EMD were electronic. This meant that unless you installed a special interface between the locomotives, they couldn't be MU'd. However, that it was available as a factory option, and it was something that could be added after the fact, and when it was shopped. So a lot of these did have those interfaces, and you could see these in operation MU'd with EMD and other brands of locomotives. And so that's the way I operated. Matter of fact, I have the Baldwin Shark, an EMD F3, and an Alco FA2 all in one consist for the V&O that I use on the Piedmont Southern. So it makes an interesting first generation lash up, and you get to hear the various sounds that might not normally be on your model railroad. Now also I mentioned that these were owned by a small number of companies. Initially they were purchased by Pennsylvania Railroad, the B&O, and the New York Central. After, in the 60s, I think it was, a number were sold to the Monongahela Railroad, and then, they started to retire these after that. So they didn't really appear on a lot of different railroads, but there are 4 right there. And then I believe it was in the 1970s that the D&H, the Delaware and Hudson Railroad, picked up 2 of these from a scrap line. They just traded in some of their locomotives that they were going to scrap for 2 that were in pretty good shape, and they repainted them in a Santa Fe-inspired war bonnet blue and silver paint scheme that looked very much like the PA3s, or the PAs, that the D&H was using on passenger excursions. So those these Sharks from the D&H were used on excursions and also pulling general freight for a number of years until they were finally sold off, and they were rented out to a number of other companies. I think a tourist railroad had them for a while, and then they ended up on, I believe it was the Escanaba Railroad up in Michigan, which ended up purchasing them, where they are still located today in storage. And interestingly, the owner of that railroad, who is 73 years old, says that they will be donated to a museum after he dies. So don't hold your breath on when you might see them. In the meantime, he keeps them stored inside of a warehouse or facility on the railroad, and he says that he has acquired diesel prime movers as replacements for the ones that are currently in these locomotives. And so at some point, when they go to a museum, these can be restored and put back in operation again. Presumably, he's going to donate them to a museum that is on a tourist railroad or something of that nature so that they can be used. It's hard to say, and he won't say where he's going to put them. Okay, enough of the background. Let me go ahead. I'm going to put this back together so it's going to sound the same way as it did with the LokSound decoder, because it's got the same speaker in it. It's going to have the same shell. Everything is going to be the same except for the decoder and the sound package. So let me get that set up and we'll do a test. Okay, what I'm going to do now is run through the bell and the horn and those stationary sounds, and then we'll go ahead and crank her up and listen to the prime mover as it accelerates some, and also to the brakes. Okay, so that's the difference in LokSound and WOWSound. You know, there are a few minor differences, such as the horns themselves, the sound of the horns, and also that GE whooping compressor really makes a difference. Otherwise, you know, there are not a lot of differences. So it really comes down in many cases to which decoder you prefer. So go ahead, give it a try in your next installation and see if you like a LokSound or a WOWSound. That's about it, so have a great week, and we'll see you here. I might have a surprise for you this week, but at least on Friday, when we'll be installing legs on the module. Bye now.